Hey, Christine, remember when you were a kid and you thought that your career was going to be this perfect straight line trajectory?
Oh my, yes. That is not at all what happened. It ended up being way more of a squiggle than I could have ever imagined. And I am so happy that I embraced all of the squiggles along the way.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to Embrace the Squiggle podcast, where we are here to uncover the hidden gems of career transformation, one unfiltered squiggly adventure at a time. I am Colleen,
And I'm Kristine.
and this is episode 4 with the fantastic Melissa Welch. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
We are so excited to have you. So we always start these by saying how we found our guests and how we're connected. And I think this is going to be my favorite one because Melissa is my ex-husband's cousin. And in the divorce, I decided that I got to keep Melissa.
And we decided right back to keep Colleen. So it was a beautiful end of matrimony
There we go.
for the
We were
rest of
good.
us.
So that was many, many, many years ago. And yeah, Melissa and I've stayed in touch, and she has one of the squiggliest careers. And I cannot wait for her and to tell her story and you all to hear this. Um, so we always start with, what did you want to be when you were a kid? Like, what did you think you were going to be?
When I was a kid, I knew that I was going to be an architect. I knew from the time I was in middle school. I used to ask for books of floor plans for Christmas and just drool over them all of the time. I knew I wanted to be an architect, and that was the only thing I thought about being. Didn't work out.
Not an architect. Don't worry, you're in good company because we have yet to interview or talk to anybody who is doing what they planned to do when they were a child, particularly middle school. So
And neither are you or I, too. So
absolutely. Right. So what was your very first professional job? Not like the paper route or like Friendlies, but what was the
Yeah.
first kind of real grown-up job that you had?
So my first real grown-up job was a part of working for Friendlies. I became a corporate trainer for them and used to travel around the country and be the person who knew all of the rules and would yell at the people when they weren't doing them or were trying to get around them. I would help franchise owners open up their store to corporate specifications.
So fun. I don't know that I realized that, Melissa,
Yeah.
because I worked at Friendlies all through high school and college.
Yeah.
And spent many, many, many hours making Jim Dandies and Reese's Pieces sundaes.
And I bet you could still do it if you needed to.
Oh,
I
100%.
never leave you.
Nope. Every time we're at some place where you get to scoop your own ice cream, like people in awe at like how perfect my little swirl
Mhm.
scoops are.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
All right. So now, but what do you get paid to do now? You're not at Friendlies anymore.
I am not at Friendlies, although I will tell you, I still have dreams every once in a while where I wake up thinking I've missed coming in for a shift and then have to talk myself into remembering that I haven't worked there in a long time. But apparently that also never leaves you. Right now, I am the senior creative director for Bay Path University, and I oversee our women's leadership conference.
Which I love. It is so exciting. All right. So now talk us through how'd you get there, right? Because that's definitely not a straight line, right? You don't go from
Oh.
trainer at Friendlies to
No.
higher ed public relations.
Yeah, a very, very, very curvy line, very squiggly, one I could not have mapped out if I even tried to. I waitressed at Friendlies through high school and college, and unbeknownst to me, would have made a terrible architect. I failed physics 3 times and then realized, perhaps my skill is not in making buildings that can stand up, but in buildings that look pretty. And it turns out you need both to be able to actually be an architect. So I dropped out of college, going from being a straight A student to a college dropout, went back to work waitressing and thought, this is my life now. I've thrown away my whole shot at any sort of success. I'm just going to be waitressing until I'm 80. And this is where I am. I was very lucky to randomly get a postcard at my parents' house at the time that offered a Saturday program to go back to school for adults. And I think I signed up within a week. I signed up then to go to teach education and got through several classes and realized I don't actually like kids as much as I thought I might. So that too did not work quite as planned. But when I was going back to school, I I decided, this might be a great time to get an office job and to try to put some in. I was going for business
Mhm.
in the end, and that's what I graduated in. And so I had a friend whose mother she ran a temp agency. And she said, "Hey, I have this spot with the Hartford. It's open. Do you want to give it a shot?" And I was like, "Sure." So I interviewed for a role in the recovery department, which is basically calling insurance companies and uninsured people and asking them for money and telling them they owed us money. And so I worked there as a temp and then got hired full time, moved up the rank within a few years to supervisor, manager. I actually ended up there doing corporate training and helping bring the division I worked with had a software component. And so I learned all sorts of project management tools and eventually wrote training manuals and flew out to clients to help them onboard their software and train all of their trainers. So that corporate training at Friendly's came in handy, a little bit of a different clientele, but that work came right back. So that was my big insurance cycle of my career. I had gotten married and knew that I didn't want to travel as much as I was for that position with the Hartford. So I had just started a very, very small stationery company. And one of the women that I really admired was hiring for her consulting firm. And I applied and I didn't get it. And I was devastated because I thought this was going to be my ticket to the next phase. 6 months later, and she called me back and said, "Hey, I didn't hire you because I knew what I had wasn't enough for you, but I'm ready now." And so I took a ginormous pay cut and started working for a consulting company called Lucky Break, where we worked with makers, mostly female business owners and makers who made everything from stationery to soaps to all sorts of, handmade things. And I learned a ton there about project management, about customer service, about running a business. Some things happened in my personal life and I needed to make a move. And I went from being the operations manager of a consulting firm to applying to Baypath, where I work now as a public relations associate. And I had never done public relations. I'm not really sure to this day what made me think like this is going to be it for me. But I loved writing and I had always loved writing. And so I just figured, what the heck, give it a shot. Spoiler alert, I also did not get that job right away. That one they hired someone else for and then opened up another position and called me and said, "Hey, we'd love you to come back and interview." So from insurance to consulting to public relations. And from there, I moved from being a full-time content writer into a total creative position. So I just got promoted a couple months ago to their senior creative director. And I spend most of my time now running the conference, but also doing all of our creative marketing work from billboards to flyers to program sheets to all of the things Baypass needs to get its name out there.
I love your openness to opportunity and possibilities.
Thank you. I
That's
honestly think it is the only reason that, well, also because I'm amazing, but
what you are, of
It
course.
was.
Yes. Yes.
it's how I ended up here. Because if you had told me 10 years ago, you're going to be a creative director someday, I'm not formally trained in design. I taught myself when I wanted to design my wedding invitations, and then other people liked them and wanted me to design theirs. And so I figured out how to do design work, and it turned out I was really good at it and really loved it. And that, with my love of storytelling, really sort of catapulted me to where I am today. But I never saw this on the Melissa bingo card of careers.
So I'm totally hijacking this, Colleen.
Go for it.
Now,
I know Melissa's story, so it's great to watch somebody else experience it.
I'm just going to hijack this podcast episode. That's okay. Even though I know she's your guest. You brought her in as a guest. But anyways, we share. Have you done strengths finders together? Or yes? Okay. Well, I figured the answer was going to be yes. So I'm curious to know what your top 5 are.
Oh my gosh, I'm not prepared. I don't even remember.
Welcome to our podcast.
You keep chatting. I can get them for you. It'll take me a minute, so keep chatting. Keep
I
going.
didn't know we were going this direction either. But okay, so
If I had known I had homework, I would have come.
We're now letting all of our future guests know that they need
Yes.
to have their strength finder assessment handy. Just in case. Okay, I'll stop interrupting. What 5 do you remember? I know Colleen's gonna pull them up. Do you remember?
I feel like there was an achiever in there and also something related to empathy, maybe? Yeah, that's all I got.
That's all you got? Okay. How do you leverage those
So
in your current role?
So it's interesting, so I work in higher ed now and I work in a creative field, but so much of my day and my professional life, empathy plays a huge part in it. So whether it's talking to current students where I work or with colleagues, being able to relate to people and sort of put myself in how they may be feeling or experiencing a situation and letting that dictate how I work with them has been key. I thankfully have a great reputation on campus for being easy to work with. And I think the empathy is a huge reason why. Because no matter who I'm working with, I try to go into it never assuming that I know more than them or am in a different place than them, but really as this collaborative. So I was a straight A student, turned into a college dropout. So who then got back up on the upswing. So wanting to achieve and being driven to achieve has always been a huge part of me. And it is to this day. I think it's why I've done well at work because I'm so committed to seeing the final outcome and to getting to the results and to doing the work to get there. Sometimes in an unhealthy way. I will just share the boundary setting has taken me some time to learn. And Colleen has been a great lesson in that and helping along with that. But yeah, I think the older I get and the more into my career I get, I realize that who I innately am is what has gotten me to where I am.
Yeah, beautiful. So when you think of your squiggle, we'll just call it you.
Yeah.
How have you built on it each time?
So the interesting thing about my career squiggle is that all of my positions and even the companies I worked for on the surface are not related at all. I worked for a giant insurance company doing first, claims and then training and implementation. I went from there to a tiny consulting company. I was the first full-time employee hired. 001 was my nickname for a little bit. And from there, it really was being able to take what I had learned from working with all sorts of customers, from giant insurance companies to uninsured people who didn't have insurance due to making payments. So really figuring out how to talk to people and how to break down technical terms into everyday language that could be understood. And then also the training piece. So from friendlies to insurance to consulting, I did a lot of software training, teaching people how to use things. Along all of those lines, I love to write outside of work. So a lot of my work was very technical. And I really fell in love with storytelling and just sharing my own journey on life and putting that into words. And I think that is sort of what brought me into Baypath and into being able to do public relations and communication so well, because I had all this background of technical skills and training skills and business skills. And then digging into myself and figuring out how to tell that story enabled me to then be able to tell the story of other people and businesses really, really well.
All right. So I found your strengths. And as you say that, it was so nice to see them too, right? So your top 5: intellection, number 1, achiever, connectedness, which you just were able to so smoothly, right? Tell that story of how it's all connected.
Yeah.
Empathy and harmony.
Ooh, okay. So I would like to just thank my memory for at least getting.
Well, what you did is you just described your top 5 strengths in your own words.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
beautiful. Beautifully done.
Thank you.
Beautifully done. What has been the sort of the biggest reward that you've had out of you've received from your career?
So I think for me, a lot of the jobs that I've taken and the roles that I've taken and the projects I've taken within those roles, I have taken them not knowing what I was doing. So sort of allowing myself to say, you don't know the answer yet, but you're capable of doing this and you're capable of figuring it out. And plenty of other people have done it without knowing what they were doing. And so like, why not me? Why not me now? Seeing that pay off and being able to say, oh my gosh, I just ran this conference and 6 months ago, I had no idea how to do any of this. And it came out beautifully. And yes, it was stressful and hard, but I did that. I figured it out. I put myself out there, and the reward was so great to be able to feel so accomplished and have achieved such a great thing that I honestly wasn't sure I could do when I first said yes.
I love that you had such self-confidence in yourself to be able to say, right, like, "I can figure this out."
Yeah.
Because, across the board, I mean, I hate to be sexist on some of these things, but, study after study shows that in general, women don't have that same attitude and
Mhm.
that men tend to have that attitude way more than
Yeah.
women do, right?
Yeah.
I just had this conversation on Saturday with the teammate actually, and we were traveling down to a race just over the border. And I don't even know how we got on the topic, but it was very similar to what we're talking about. And he actually said, like, I wish that more women, could step into that confidence that sometimes, that men have and be resourceful and say, like, I don't have the answer today, but give me a day or give me 48 hours to go find the answer. And there's just so many of us that hold ourselves back in those situations. And I was actually coaching a client this morning where she was reflecting back on her facilitation. She's a senior director and they're going through massive change. But we stopped and celebrate. What we did stop and celebrate was her awareness. And so that she'll be able to, step forward and do it a little bit differently the next time she finds herself in the same situation. But what I'm just hearing from you is like, it's there. And it's almost like those qualities are some of your they are your superpowers.
Yeah. I thank my mother for that. So Colleen knows my mother, and
Aunt Judy's the best.
hi mom. I'm sure she's going to
Shout out to Aunt Judy.
How do I get adopted into this? Because I want a little bit of what you two have. I want more of this.
I will have to invite Aunt Judy onto the podcast next.
Oh my gosh, she would,
Because she was a little squiggly too.
she really was. And now she's retired and living the best life. But she taught me, she started working as a lawnmower repair woman in her early 20s at a time when women were not really working in those fields. And she's always had this attitude of like, why not me? And just owned things and has always sort of bucked the norm on that. From my perspective, I don't know how she actually felt, but as a young girl and now as an adult watching her, she really set the tone for that. And then also for me, going to graduate school was a huge, huge, both a confidence boost, but also a change in my perspective on so many things. I honestly could tell you probably like a handful of classes I took or like actual like facts that I learned. But for me, the biggest takeaway was having this like really renewed confidence in myself and my ability to do things, and also learning from people who also had admitted that they didn't always know what they were doing, and being like, oh my gosh, who out here does? Who knows what they're doing? Nobody. Nobody. We're all just, taking our experiences and hoping that what we're doing, we can figure it out.
And too many people are afraid to admit that.
Yes. Yes. This is great timing. I just received an award yesterday at work for living our core values, which is, it's that empathy piece, right? It's super important to me to feel like I am doing my best from a moral and ethical perspective. And the woman who gave the award to me is one of our board members. And we've worked together a little bit, but not like a daily, we're not close by any means. But what she said was, what I love about Melissa is she's not afraid to be wrong. She's not going to let that hold her back, and she's going to try. And if she has to say, that was not right, and try again, like she will. And I felt so seen because I don't know that I realized that other people saw that in me. And so hearing it just was like, yay, that felt great.
That's awesome. And such a great skill to have, right? Such a great ability to say, I'm willing to try this. And if it doesn't go well, whatever, we'll pivot and fix
Yeah.
it and keep moving.
Yeah.
Well, that's the emotional intelligence piece.
Mm.
I mean, that's the competency of optimism.
Yeah. I think for me, the emotional intelligence has been as important, if not more important, than my actual. I mean, they're both intellect, but then my book smarts or my sort of learned intellect. I think it's taken me really far.
Well, it's really how we all get along and how we get ahead in the world.
Mhm.
Right. I remember when my kids were little, even saying, I don't care what your grades are. I want to hear the teacher say that you know how to interact with other human beings, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
you're the kid who pulls the kid aside who's sitting by themselves to have lunch with them, right?
Yes. You're the good friend.
That's more important than
Mhm.
if you have a solid A in math.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what are you currently working on now? Like, what are you excited about these days?
So I am full speed ahead on the 2024 Women's Leadership Conference. You say something so many times, it just becomes non-words to you anymore. So we are like we just signed our final speaker. So that's really exciting and just looking for sponsors. And my favorite part of it is designing the actual day. So getting into the presentation and the music and all of the lighting and all of that. We work with an awesome production partner, which again, 2 years ago, I had no clue how to do any of that. And then suddenly here I am doing it. So that's a huge thing. And then, higher ed is it's a tough industry right now. Everyone's questioning the value of college and rightfully so. And so it's figuring out, how to share how special BayPath is and get that out in a way that can be seen by the masses, but understood on a really individual level, because that's sort of where we shine.
higher ed was challenging before the world changed.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's a myth. I'm totally digressing here, but I'll bring it back on track in a moment. And I think it's a myth about higher education that it's not a walk in the park, that's for sure. It takes a special kind of human to work within the walls of higher education. So
Speaking of three women who are sitting here who've all worked in higher ed. So
We are
we've all been there.
privileged.
yes, we have. But I'm curious. I'm curious to know how do Colleen and I get maybe a spot on the speaker panel at the leadership conference in the future?
You have to apply.
Okay.
And we look at probably hundreds of speakers every year.
Okay.
So it's very, very tight competition. But yeah, we're open.
We will put our names.
I have a
in
table
well,
there this year. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to see me.
fun. Okay.
Yes. We'll have some Embrace the Squiggle, at least stickers by then. Not sure what else we'll have.
What's your biggest piece of career advice that you would like to share with our listeners?
My biggest piece of advice is to not limit yourself, to not decide for somebody else that you can't do something that you're offered or that you aren't going to be good at it, because you truly don't know. I think we all don't know what we're capable of until we're doing it. Reminds me of all the things, right? Motherhood, going to college. It seems unheard of and impossible until you're doing it. And then you figure out how to do it. And then you do it and it's done. And so I think, I was one of those people when I was in high school who was like, this is what I'm doing. This is my career. This is my straight line. And that line got literally erased and redrawn and moved around what feels like thousands of times along the way. And so if I had only stuck to that, I would probably be a terrible architect somewhere, like still in a drafting position, not doing something that fulfilled me or made me happy. So, I think let yourself say yes, let yourself prove yourself wrong, and just don't think you always know where you're meant to go or what you're meant to be, because you probably don't. And that's great. That's exciting.
Absolutely. I feel like we all make these squiggles and rarely does anybody land exactly where they think they're going to.
Yeah. But also nobody talks about it. So I'm really
Right.
grateful that you two are out here, putting that out into the world, because I think, especially as women, we're all sold this story that we need to decide what we're going to do, who we're going to be. And I will tell you, at 40, I am nothing like I was at 25, at 30, at 35. honestly, I'm way better now. Like I've learned to embrace myself fully, or not, I'm not even fully. I'm sure, in 10 years, I'll feel even differently, but I'm not who I thought I was going to be. And I had to mourn that a little bit when that realization hit me. But now on the other side, it's like, thank God I'm not that person, because this is better. This feels better to me than that would have.
Yeah. And I mean, helping people get there and having people hear all these stories of women who've kind of gotten there. And you know what? We may talk to you from 10 years from now and you're going to be doing something completely different.
Oh, I
And
will be. I have no doubt
right.
about that. Like I'm sure I will be. And I'm excited to know, like, what's that going to be 10 years from now, 15 years? Who knows?
I didn't know I'd be sitting here recording a podcast 6 months ago.
And see, here you are.
And here I am. Yeah, having the time of my life.
It's so
You just-
exciting to talk to everybody.
Love that.
So I'll say we always end with some fun, rapid fire, fun questions.
Okay.
There's 5 of them. It's not anything wild and crazy.
Okay.
All right. We'll start off easy. Pen or pencil?
Ooh, pen.
Do you have a favorite pen?
I do. I love gel pens, but I have to be very careful because I smudge them very easily because I write really fast. So I sort of fluctuate between them. I want to be a pencil person because the art side of me feels like that's better, but I am not. I'm a pen and I accept it.
Excellent. Cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs. I grew up only with cats, and then I got a dog 13 years ago and have forever been changed, and now am a dog person through and through.
And Sawyer's pretty awesome. So
He's amazing. And
who is the dog? In case
Yeah.
anybody's wondering why I'm calling out somebody named Sawyer at that moment. All right. Adventure or relaxing vacation?
Oh, relaxing. 100%. I stick me on a beach with a margarita in hand and some sun and a good book. And it's kind of like the pencil thing. I want to be an adventurer, but that's just not who I am. I like to adventure sometimes, but by the time I hit like vacation, just plant me somewhere and just let me will it for a few days.
Nice. Salty or sweet?
Both. I love snacks. I'll take all the snacks all the time. I'm an open, equal opportunist to salty and sweet.
All right. And then our very last one, Excel or PowerPoint?
Oh, Excel. Although honestly, like I'm more of a Google product person these days. Love PowerPoint because you can make pretty things, which is of course near and dear to my heart. But I wanted a T-shirt that said "freaking the sheets," the spreadsheets, and I love me a good spreadsheet.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Melissa, for being our guest today. So if our listeners want to find you or follow you somewhere on social media, do you have someplace they could follow you?
I do. You can find me on Instagram at Print Therapy, PRINTTHEARPY. That is my stationery company that I used to run. That's sort of on hiatus for the moment, but for the rest of my career, who knows when that will come back and what it will look like. But you can find me there sort of riffing on life and motherhood and work and all of the things that make me up.
Excellent. Well, you can follow Kristine and I on Embrace the Squiggle on Instagram. You can stay connected with me on Instagram at Colleen Delve or on LinkedIn at Colleen Del Vecchio.
And I am on LinkedIn as Kristine Thody and on Instagram as Kristine.Thody.
Excellent. So follow us for some updates and additional insights. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. We're so excited to be putting this out weekly. And hopefully you will find some great information and figure out how to embark on your own squiggly career journey. So thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Is it time for you to add a little squiggle to your career? Join us every week to hear from another guest talk about how they embrace the squiggle.
Subscribe now and find your inspiration.